Fans of the horror genre have always been a mystery to me for a number of reasons. Like, why do you enjoy a bloody dismembering or painfully waiting to throw your popcorn across a cinema that cost you your left kidney? But after watching this film, I'm starting to understand. Horror films, in my experience, have never delivered on thought provoking plots or human psyche breakdowns, but rather nonsensical violence that creeps around good writing until it can jump out and ruin your underwear. Some have monsters, others blood and guts, but Weapons scares you with something completely new. When I saw the trailer for Weapons, despite its intriguing packaging, I was skeptical as I had never found reaching for a bucket or being traumatized for 90 minutes entertaining. My general rule is if the trailer can capture its strongest elements, such as outstanding performances or unique stylization, I'd give it a chance. So when the stellar reviews, word of mouth, and box office booms started to rear its head, I'd be a hypocrite not to watch. And watch I did, because this film is unlike anything I'd ever seen from the horror genre, and today I'm going to share all the secrets that makes Weapons a must watch. Let's get into it. Weapons isn't just another horror film, it's a layered, slow burn nightmare about mystery, humanity, and the horrors lurking just beneath our reality. Director Zach Krieger takes horror into new avenues and touches on all the downfalls of typical horror films, elevating them instead of hiding them. Having been so surprised from this film, I'll be staying clear of spoilers as I think everyone needs to watch this film for its deep crime thrill ride rather than its typical horror scares. Weapons jumps straight over the inexplainable events following an entire classroom of children leaving their beds at 2:17 in the morning and running hypnotically into the dark, never to be seen again. The film delves into the community's fallout of the demonized teacher of the departed class, a head teacher trying to control a brewing witch hunt, a recovering alcoholic cop burdened with solving the mystery, a grieving father, a troubled bystander, and the only child spared from this horrific event. With such an array of layered characters, I was impressed with how the director allowed each their time in the spotlight, and for good reason. On the surface, its storytelling is non-linear. Events weave in and out of order, and it's up to us to connect the pieces. But within that chaos, there's a contrasting structure. The film uses chapter-like arcs, each centered on each character, allowing them to feel like real people rather than empty plot devices. We're not just thrown into randomness, we're guided through different perspectives. It's like a puzzle where each character gives you one more piece, even if it doesn't make sense until much later. And yes, it does delve into the supernatural, but unlike so many horror films, it doesn't waste time over explaining. There's no character giving a 10-minute lecture about the origins of some curse. Instead, it's about how people deal with the mystery and how they try and solve the immediate issue, even when they don't fully understand what they're facing. That restraint makes the supernatural elements feel scarier because the unknown stays unknown. But why focus on the seemingly uninteresting day to day rather than the event itself? Well, that's where Weapons' production team truly understood that the best horror comes from the unknown. It takes the everyday, the mundane, and turns it into something deeply unsettling. Whether it's the silent lights casting over a ceiling fan or a random stranger walking towards you, it still makes you anticipate the worst. And what's even stranger, sometimes it even makes you laugh. But is that laugh intentional, or is it just the human brain desperately trying to breathe in a suffocating atmosphere? The laughs are also strangely common and more effective than you might think. The unease in Weapons doesn't come from the unusual horror tricks. It's not about the loud, untuned strings or things jumping out of the dark. Instead, it thrives in silence. Long pauses where nothing seems to happen, shots of characters just existing in the ordinary world. It's uncomfortable because it feels so real. And when the violence does arrive, it's not cheap. It's shocking, short, sharp bursts of brutality that feel wrong in all the right ways. But here's where it gets interesting. Between the silence and the dreads, there are moments of humor. Not laugh out loud gags, but human, awkward, relatable exchanges. You almost wonder, did the director mean for this to be funny, or is it just us recognizing ourselves in these flawed characters? Either way, the humor doesn't break the tension. If anything, it sharpens it, because the more human these characters feel, the more terrifying it is when the horror finally hits them. The camera work is also doing a large part of the heavy lifting when it comes to the film's delivery of humor and anticipation. Usually, Weapons is stunning. The cinematography does two very specific things. It keeps the camera tight and tracks close behind the character. These tight shots mean we're trapped with them. We don't get to see what's around the corner, and we're left blind to any visual or emotional indicators for what to expect. Then suddenly, a wide shot. Empty and unnerving, mundane space. And the longer the camera holds, the more our imagination runs wild. Something could happen, but nothing does. Until it does, that's the ultimate anticipation. But this anticipation isn't always met as empty threats. Redirection and straight up violence is never too far away. Now, if you're expecting buckets of gore, you're not going to find it here. The violence is quick, brutal, and uncomfortable. It comes in short bursts, not a non-stop barrage of cheap scares like Saw or Final Destination slogs. That makes it more impactful because we don't get desensitized. Each moment of violence lands like a gut punch. But Weapons isn't about shocking you with blood, it's about keeping you hooked on the mystery, on the unfolding puzzle, and most importantly, on the people. These characters are flawed. They make mistakes. They're sometimes unlikable, but they're also painfully human. And when you start to care about them, the horror becomes that much more effective because you're not just watching bodies fall, you're watching lives unravel. This is what leads to the crux of this film and why it's so effective, aka the underlining messages. Not a film to protest or preach, but using real world events to drive an incredible story. Beneath the surface, Weapons is carrying a heavy weight of secrets. Not only do the numbers 217, the numbers on the clock, relate to the 2022 automatic arms ban that nearly passed in the United States, but the director also suffered a personal loss during the writing of Weapons. He's also mentioned his influence via his alcoholic parents during his childhood, and once mentioned, you can't help feel it in every scene you watch. But the secrets to Weapons only keep going deeper. There are also subtle, almost subliminal messages about school massacres, and not just as background noise, but as an undercurrent shaping the film's identity. There was a real life incident where 17 school children needlessly passed in the worst way possible. And if you've seen the film, the perpetrator's hair and their persona has many matching qualities to the true antagonist of this film. Director Zach Krieger has spoken about how this specific case is close to his own life, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it. It adds another layer of horror because the scariest thing about Weapons isn't the supernatural, it's the reminder of the real world violence that echoes just outside the theater. In the end, Weapons isn't your typical horror film. It's a slow burn mystery wrapped in dread, silence, and empathy. It proves that horror doesn't need to be loud to be terrifying. Sometimes the scariest things aren't what jump out at you, it's what lingers in mundane daily life, what hides in the structure, and what reflects the very real fears we live with every single day. It's not just about scares, it's about humanity. And that's why Weapons is the best horror film I've seen in years. But that's just my opinion. So let me know your insights or theories about weapons. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, this doesn't happen without you.